Well, you join me here. I am at the Mike Schy Golf Performance Institute in, at Dragonfly Golf Club in Madera in California. And really excited to be here. I've met Mike a couple of times at tournaments at Bay Hill on a couple of occasions, and obviously followed him closely because of his association with Bryson DeChambeau, the work he's done with Brysons since he was a child. But I got to know a little bit more about Mike when I started looking at his website, and I saw a few parallels between the two of us in our earlier pro careers. But Mike, talk us through, because you were a junior champion, weren't you?
Yes. Yep. Played junior golf. Fortunately, in Northern California, we had one of the best junior programs on the planet. And so it was formed by, we had Southern California and Northern California junior golf, and both were incorporated after two gentlemen got out of World War II. Oh, and so they formed all these junior golf tournaments, and it grew and grew. And fortunately for me, in the early 70s, I had a great place to play. We were playing 3 times a week in junior tournaments at some of the best clubs, in California, Olympic Club, and you name it, for $5. And it was just a great time, and I enjoyed it so much, and fell in love with the game, obviously, and fell in love with competing, and won a few tournaments here and there, and ended up at Fresno State playing golf at Fresno State. We were a very, very good college golf team at the time, and then turned pro after that.
Right. So the junior programs that you had in California, I know that they've been quite big in the States. Probably one of the reasons why Europe was losing so many Ryder Cups in the early days.
Probably, yeah, no doubt.
Because certainly the UK's never been great. Well, it's changed markedly now, but it was never great at junior golf, really. Juniors really had a hard time going into the course, and I know that from being a junior in the early 70s, but ended up getting in with the municipal golf course and a really good junior program there. So, we
were fortunate here again in North, especially in this area, Central Valley, where it's still very affordable for kids to play. That's why there's so many good juniors that come out of this area, because it's very affordable versus, let's say, in LA or San Francisco, where it's, again, probably 10 times more to play than it is, here.
At a municipal course, or
whether it's a muni or at a public golf course as well, it's just very affordable. We have country clubs here, very nice, that are $300 or $400 a month. That would be probably $1,000 plus to be a member at in the Bay Area or in LA. Certainly very expensive, for initiation and so on. So, but again, we have a junior rate here for $15. You can go play 18 holes. I have kids that are a part of my academy, and it's $230 a month, and they can be here 5 days a week. It's, very affordable. And I could only do that because of where we are.
Right. Well, I've seen about 15 or 20 kids going through, in the short time I've been here today. And they all look really relaxed and under no pressure, and they're all swinging well.
We're trying.
Certainly I've seen from your programs that you do focus on youth,
yes,
to a large extent,
right,
and also elite golfers,
yes,
as well. So obviously you're really proud of that. But it's funny, I did an article a while ago on people were talking, golf's so expensive and it's this and it's that. And I think if you want to have the latest TaylorMades or the latest Titleist or the latest Callaways, you want to join a country club, you want to get the best FootJoys, it is expensive. Right. But in reality now, dress codes are relaxed anyway. You don't need to have a branded shirt. You can get fantastic golf clubs at a lot of stores, and you can get fitted later on. There's no need to get.
I think, honestly, Bryson is a great example of that. Bryson's, father was very, very sick when he was growing up, still is, struggling with diabetes and some other things. And so they didn't have a lot of money to travel or play or clubs or so on. And yet Bryson persevered, and I think that, again, if you want to make it work, you can make it work. And again, we tried to provide that atmosphere here where, again, if you're on a budget, we try to work with that. And so, I want to see kids playing the game. So it's such a great game. It doesn't matter to me. You have money, not money, whatever, and if you're struggling with that, we'll figure out a way to make it work.
And if you've done that and you've brought the kids through, in reality, golf, because of the way it is, you don't really have to try hard to do this. It is just teaches life skills. I say this may sound bizarre, but I've never had a bad debt from a golf customer.
Right.
They sound strange.
Right.
They're all just genuinely good people.
Right.
Yeah.
For the most part, yeah. No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
For the most part, yeah.
Depends on when they turn pro or not. So that's yeah. No doubt.
Right. But I wanted to ask you, because I know people will be fascinated, about how you got together with Bryson. How did that whole thing happen? How old was he when you got together?
I've known Bryson since he was 7, 8 years old. He grew up around here. His dad and I played junior golf together, so I've known him for a long time. His dad was the director of golf at the golf course, and so Bryson would hang out with us when he was 11, 10, always picking on the older kids, that's for sure. And when he was 11 or so, 12, came to me and said, "Hey, I want you to be my coach." And he was very comfortable being in the tent. And I said, "Well, go tell your dad that he's no longer the coach, and I'll be happy to work with you." And so we became inseparable from that time on.
And when he was that age, was he as inquisitive and challenging then? I mean, was that evident?
Oh, yeah, always. Bryson was always, asking a million questions. And again, my environment here, that's what I've always promoted. And so this is, I always make fun that this is a science project gone terribly wrong. And so Bryson obviously just was so, just thrived in this environment because, first of all, I don't say no. And if he asked a question, let's go figure it out what the answer is and whether I had it or not. And so whether he was 12-year-old asking those questions or 17 years old, none of those things changed.
Right. But his swing changed.
Yes.
In that time.
Yeah. So, he was, again, we were, quote, conventional. I don't know if anything we did was conventional. In fact, he was about a 5-degree flat iron for a long period of time. So that would kind of blow people away considering what they see now.
At what age?
15, 16 years old, right about the time he decided to go to the same length golf clubs or one length golf clubs. And so, it wasn't until he really started diving into the golfing machine that he realized that he wanted to change a few things, namely his hand position at address and impact. He wanted those two things to match. And so, the golfing machine kind of led him down that road to, where he is today.
So when I look at the golf machine, and I look at the book and I put it down about as quickly. Now, I've really tried to understand it, and it seems to me incredibly complex.
Sure. Especially like me, I was dyslexic. So, for me to even read any book was very difficult. So that book even made it worse. But the cool part about the golfing machine, I started reading it in 1970, 76, maybe 77. And I started to go see Ben Doyle over in Carmel, and that was because of Bobby Clampett at the time. Bobby Clampett was a legend in junior golf and amateur golf, and so the golfing machine was something new, and here this kid Bobby Clampett was setting the world on fire and how he played, and so of course again you wanted to be like him and wanted to see what it was all about. Unfortunately, it was in my backyard in Carmel. It was a 3-hour drive, and we get to go see Pebble Beach and the 17-mile drive, and we get to hit golf balls and get better. So, for me, the golfing machine was, again, understanding the golf machine, you have to understand it's more of a manual than it is a book you read cover to cover and go, oh, okay, I got it. And so the golfing machine has 13 trillion swings in it. So that's probably why sometimes it gets complicated for people. It's what I told Bryson, there's 13 trillion swings in there, pick one. And so, and that's kind of where we ended up at the, the 24 components that worked for him that he really wanted to do. And he wrote down what he wanted in his golf swing. And he said, all right, this is what I want to do, and committed to it 100%. And practiced on, whether it was the PlaneSWING or the circle that we invented as well. And so all those times of video and making sure he was validating what the golf machine was telling him. That's what he did every day, all day long.
So he went from 5 degrees flat to what?
To maybe 9 degrees upright. Wow. So if you look at his clubs, I mean, we've been as hot as much as 72 degrees, let's say on a 7-iron. So that would be 9, 10 degrees, depending on whose lie angles you're looking at. But yeah, that was just what it ended up being. And that's a big change, no doubt. And his dad wasn't very happy with us or with me at that time. So, you know, again, you have to understand Bryson. That's just him. He's willing to go places that nobody's willing to go and willing to test. And it's not easy. And because there's a lot of failure in there. And Bryson failed a lot. It just so happened he was a very, very good junior golfer. And we were doing things that nobody thought of. And there were some bad rounds in there from time to time. And there were certainly phone calls from Dad that, what are you doing with my kid? And so on. But you know, again, it was all choices that Bryson wanted to do. And so I was just willing to help, you know, guide him in those, going, okay, maybe this one's not so good. Let's reel it back a little bit. But when you look at just the club perspective and the you know, starting with the clubs that were the same length, I mean, I was all in. I just saw it was such a benefit, and it was certainly a benefit to him and what he wanted to do. That's for sure.
Right. So when he made the shift from 5 degrees flat and up, what sort of age was that? Did you make that change?
Probably 16, 17. You know, it was a very quick change. And so he realized that what had happened was right before the US Am at Erin Hills, he was 16, I believe. He asked me, why do I have to play variable length clubs? Mm-hmm. You know, and I said, well, Bryson, that's a very easy question to ask, but a very difficult one to answer. But we can certainly go home and test it. Of course, when does he ask? Right before we leave to the USAM. And so we came back home, and I took a set of Nike clubs that I had that were cavity back, and we destroyed them. And we figured out what the head weights had to be, which the head weights we agreed upon was about 282 grams at the time. And again, if you look at a pitching wedge, or let's say a sand wedge that had 300 grams, to take 20 grams of weight off a club, you would think, oh, that's simple, 20 grams, that's nothing. Oh, that's a lot on a golf club. And so Bryson came up with his own specialized grinds, which was very interesting. We had to add 30, 40 grams of lead tape on clubs to make everything, again, at 282 on the head weights. We threw dynamic gold 6-iron shabs in all the clubs because that's all we could afford at the time. And he went out and played. And we went to the second hole when we tested it finally. We went to our second hole, it's now the 11th hole, and went to the first hole and played it normal. Said 8-iron, that's like my normal club anyway. Went to the next hole, and we were about 210 yards out. He got his 5-iron, and he looked at me and he said, this could change the game. And he stuffed it in there about 10 feet and never looked back. You know, he won a bunch of junior golf tournaments with those clubs, as bad as they were. And then fortunately we had a manufacturer kind of help us out, good friend of mine who was on tour and helped me get some heads that they weren't perfect, but they were better than what we had. And we used those for a while. And then fortunately David Adele made some clubs for Bryson and they were more legit. And then again, he ended up with Cobra. So that's kind of a quick synopsis from the start of one length.
Don't just cut all your clubs down.
No doubt.
It's a 6-iron length.
No doubt. A lot of people have done that, and they call and they text me. It doesn't work, and again, the heads have to be a certain weight. So I think Cobra's right now on their clubs are around 270 grams on their head weight, so they can create a little bit of speed there. I know we've experimented with heavier weights as well, but again, the heads need to all be the same weight in order to make it work correctly.
Right, and sort of going forward from that, he's been experimenting with a longer driver as well. Is he just always thinking as to?
No doubt about it.
What if this?
Yeah.
What if that?
Yep. No doubt about it. And again, he might the long driver thing doesn't work at this point. It's obviously longer drivers are great for long drive contests, but very difficult. When you're trying to somewhat hit it on the golf course when you're playing competitively. So that hasn't worked out quite yet. For him, but he's always been that way. It's like, hey man, I want to test this, and unfortunately for equipment manufacturers, that's not easy because usually he's going to ask that question on Tuesday when he's at a tour event. The funny thing about him now, when we didn't have any money, it was easy. Hey Bryson, this is it. Make it work. Once he ended up on tour and obviously could get whatever he wanted and whenever he wants it. That is so difficult from a manufacturer perspective. And so You know, I know Cobra's, you know, loves Bryson, but I know how hard it is when he's like, we need to try this or do this. And again, and on the fly, it's not very easy to do.
And it's interesting, that brings me on to Team Bryson, really. Because if you've got the manufacturers, and he's been as challenging as he's been, I mean, you've got a pretty impressive team around him.
Yeah, you bet. And again, that was my view. If I don't have an answer or we need somebody, let's go find and try to get the right person for the job, whether it was our caddy, Tim, who's, you know, as far as I'm concerned, best caddy on tour. And he was a perfect fit. I've known Tim for a long time, and just felt like that he would be the right guy for the situation we were in at the time. You know, Bryson had gone through a couple of caddies already, and Tim was a perfect fit. He bought into everything that we do. He likes science. He likes all the stuff that we try to do, especially a lot of the things that Bryson does when he plays, or, you know, again, whether it's barometric pressure or so on. You know, you got to have a unique caddy, you know, for that. The sick guys, again, when we went through that process, it was a very difficult time. He was doing face-on putting, and we all kind of know how that worked out. I still feel that was the best way to putt. I think Bryson even at times even picked up the putter that I still have it, and he goes, "Man, I putted good with this thing." And so, you know, again, and again, that's a whole nother story. But, you know, again, he hadn't putted conventionally for 4 or 5 months. You know, he called me after, I think, Valspar, and what do? I need a putter, and I don't know what to do. And, you know, I said, gave him a couple options, and we had met the sick guys a few months prior. And I said, you know, why not you take a drive to Orlando and meet with Steve Harrison and the sick guys. I said, they're kind of crazy like us, and I think, you know, you'll spend a couple of days with them, and they have kind of a frat house, which was kind of funny at the time, and because they had no money either. And I said, you know, I think they'll build a putter for you, and I think you'll have a great time. It'd be good for you. Came up with the arm lock that he's putting with today, basically. And, you know, shoot, I think it was 2 weeks later, he played in Puerto Rico, finished second, you know, and is, you know, really has never looked back regarding the, you know, the arm lock. Again, you know, Cobra's been amazing trying to, you know, come up with great product for him as well. And so, you know, again, it's just getting the right people together. Greg Roscoff with MAT, muscle activation technique, for him, you know, and his fitness. So all those people in place, it's an amazing team, and it's much appreciated.
And the bulk that he put on, I mean, he did put a lot of bulk on, quite clearly, you could see that. But it was, from what I saw, and I slowed down a few, so I'm looking at everything, and I just saw it. He wasn't muscle bound though. There was a huge amount of flexibility in there.
Sure.
I mean,
and that's one of the keys with muscle activation technique, and you'll never see Bryson stretch. That doesn't exist in muscle activation technique. And so from their perspective and Greg's perspective is that it's find end range and then strengthen end range, and that's how you increase flexibility. And that's just a little bit of how, you know, MAT works. Best to go look up MAT and Greg Roscoff, and you can certainly get lots of answers there in understanding MAT. But again, Bryson asked me, it was like a January 3.5 years ago, what do you think? I think I'm going to go to Greg. And I've known Greg since, again, he's from Fresno, and he worked for my sister, and my sister ended up working for him. And we were fortunate, and there was an MAT certified specialist at SMU, and that was one of the reasons why we really wanted to go to SMU as well. And so Bryson had been a part of muscle activation technique, but it wasn't until he actually got to go to Greg and really be with Greg that his life changed, I think, from a fitness standpoint. So he's been under supervision in respect to all the muscle mass gain, the strength, obviously what he's eating, nutrition. You know, it was a little suspect, I think, in the beginning. But, you know, what's funny about Bryson, when I look back all the times I caddied for him, just to get him to eat anything was very difficult. I mean, when he was in competition, he just didn't eat. You know, he was a thin guy. And so it was interesting watching him go through this process, and obviously eating what he was eating, trying to bulk up and so on. But obviously now he's trimmed out. He looks really good. And again, he's a beast when he works out. There's no doubt about it. He works out extremely hard, and not taking away from anybody, whether it's Brooks or Dustin or anybody that works out. Obviously, John Rahm, works out very hard as well. But again, Bryson sees something, and when he wants to go after it, he goes after it.
Well, I think all of these people, all of the athletes now, you look at Rory, and he's 5'9", 5'10". He looks 6'3" when he's standing there with the ball. His whole posture, and he looks so dynamic, and his chest and everything. And then I was just watching the Euros, and I was looking at Ronaldo, and there's a guy. He could, if he wanted to, still be playing, I think, at the very top level at like 45, which would be, unheard of in modern day. And so I can see now, you look at Phil winning at 50. I mean, he's as fit as I've ever seen him look. He looks absolutely fantastic. He'd really put on a few pounds at one point. So he's looking great. So the fitness thing is so important. But if you want to be the best, you want to be, the very best you can be, you've got to surely look at every aspect of whether it's your fitness, whether it's your equipment, whether it's whatever it is, mental coach, and so on. And good point on that. Does he have a mental coach? Or
so he works with it's Neuro Peak Vision. So yes, we always felt like the final frontier would be his brain, or anybody's brain, I guess, for that matter. And so he's been working with them for the last few years to understand how his brain works, and so brain training, I guess you could call it. As far as a psychologist, sports psychologist, no, it's nothing like that. So it's truly understanding how the brain works and how to make it function at its peak performance. And I think that's what he wants to understand more than anything. We're trying to have everything in place that you need to have to be successful.
So when I arrived here today, obviously you very kindly bought some PlaneSWINGs from me. I really appreciate
No problem.
that. And I absolutely understand the whole philosophy around it as far as you're concerned. I've seen the Schy circle there, which is very similar. It sits a little bit further off. I think,
And we did that on purpose because Bryson wanted to hit balls out of it. And so he wanted to be able to hit balls, whether it was a driver or a wedge. And so, those were all some of the things that we did. We loved the PlaneSWING. We used the PlaneSWING a lot. And so it was certainly, literally, he would move it into a stall where we had a face on and downline video, and whether it was with the rod and swinging the club on it or whatever it was, he was on it sometimes 5-6 hours a day. Wow. And so, you can't, it's going to make a difference when you're on it that much. And so that's some of the things that I believe that just swinging on it once or for 5 minutes, and it certainly helps people when they do it. But if you really get on it, again, Bryson's the extreme, but if you get on it and do some of the things he does, it's going to make a difference in your golf game. There's just no doubt about it. Bryson had a certain view of how he wanted to swing the club, and he felt having PlaneSWING and having the circle, whether it's a Schy circle or the PlaneSWING, he wanted to make sure he was on something that was enhancing what he was trying to do. And he would also use it to strength train as well. And so, when you're swinging the power rod, and you're doing that for 2 hours straight, you're going to be stronger. And I don't, regardless of what he's doing now, I've never considered Bryson short by any means. He used to have a crank ball. We used to call it a crank ball that he could beef up to 125 club head speed anytime he really wanted to, So to be able to maintain 125 or 130, you needed to be stronger and have some bulk.
And what is it, 6'2"? 6'1"?
6'1", yeah, 6'1".
Yeah. So he's plenty tall enough.
Yeah, so I think to me there's a number of different ways to utilize the PlaneSWING, and so again, try to get out of the box a little bit. That's my view. It's not, like a lot of people would say, oh, you only use that because of the way Bryson swings. No, I have people that are, well, I'm going to call them normal, who swing, with their hands lower. Again, there's a lot of ways you can utilize the PlaneSWING to enhance what you're trying to do. Sometimes I'll set it up flat so I can actually shift up to where my normal position is on my backswing, and then feel how the club shallows a little bit. And I let it glide onto the circle. And so there's a lot of different ways to utilize the PlaneSWING to enhance what we're trying to do. I'm always perplexed when, I hear people, oh, the circles are bad for you. I would say that, well, I don't think it was bad for Bryson. I don't think it's bad for anybody, to be honest with you.
No, and it's it's funny you say that, because I always say there are three types of, well, first of all, we sell 10 to 1 for the guy for the backyard.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
And when the pros buy them, you tend to find there are three types of pro. There's the pro who buys it, embraces it, absolutely loves it, understands it, can teach various ways, etc., etc. Then there's somebody who doesn't understand it, and for whatever reason they're not prepared to make the leap.
Right.
And sometimes they do think it's a one-dimensional thing.
Right.
So they don't get it in that way. But the one that frustrates me most is the pro that thinks it will replace them.
Right.
You know, and they fear it, and they would never. You know, a lot of them would never admit that. Although,
right.
You know, I've heard people say that, and it's a frustration, because it becomes the bridge between the student and
no
the
doubt.
pro.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Again, it's an enhancer for me. I look at all training aids. I mean, obviously there's probably bad training aids out there, but in my view, that if there's something there to help you train, that hence the word train, the problem with a lot of people is they utilize the PlaneSWING or any training aid for such a short time, and so they don't see the improvement. You know, same thing with teachers. A lot of times, I mean, I might just, the whole lesson is on the PlaneSWING, which is, again, it's not replacing me, because I'm guiding that student and telling them how to utilize it to help them fulfill their potential. You know, again, Bryson always gave me that view that, look, you've got to do it a little bit more than the 5 minutes sometimes to create a change. You know, and certainly the PlaneSWING, you know, allows for that. And again, it's so versatile, from whether, let's say, you're swinging, when Bryson was swinging hands and club on one plane, or conventional where the hands are underneath the plane, you know, and work a little bit differently. It's very versatile for that. And I can't live, you know, personally, I have to have it. It has to be a part of our school.
Well, one of the things I encourage everyone who buys, I say, for goodness, just send me some pictures of you down the line, face on, and a little bit of video. And I'm always encouraged what I see, because you know, most of them watch the instructional video.
Right.
But some of them don't, and you know that you've got to help them. And
Sure.
got to make sure that they're actually using it correctly. You know.
You bet. You know, I've used it badly at times, I'm sure, and because I've tried to do some things that maybe shouldn't. But again, it's a great tool, and I'm very I feel very fortunate to have it.
And if I sort of close on a couple of questions, really, what do you think has been the biggest influence that Bryson's had on you?
I think it's to get out of any box that I think we as teachers put ourselves into, because it's easy to come up with a little set system that we think works for everybody. And so Bryson always has challenged me to look way beyond that, and to go beyond myself and understanding what the golf swing's about, or how a movement pattern happens with any individual. And so I think that's the biggest thing that he's done for me is to get me out of, again, as a golf pro, it's so easy to get into a little box and say that's one way and this is the only way. And you know, I can't tell how many times I've been with Bryson where we're like, hey, have you figured it out? And you know, oh no, man, I got to go this whole, that didn't work. We got to do something else. And so, and again, he still does that to to today. And again, that is how, you know, that is Bryson. But you got to appreciate that because of how good he actually is to be able to do some experiments or go down what we call rabbit holes that you would go, man, don't go down there. But he's like, no, I got to go down there. I got to go see what it's all about. And I really admire that. And I try to be that a little bit myself. It's obvious when you come into this place because it's pretty much unlike anything you're going to see, especially in a tent.
Well, I certainly, when I walked in, I was just amazed at all of the equipment that you had, but also quite clearly you're prepared because there were so many other training aids there as well. A lot of them I've got myself.
Right. Well, that's me. I mean, I'm addicted to that. So, you know, I've found that though, if you want to sell training aids, you probably shouldn't have any because basically they all come here to test them, you know, and or use them. So I think that's, you know, again, that's the environment. It's like I said, this is a science project that's gone terribly wrong. Again, I've been very fortunate. I have a robot. I have the golf robot, Robo Golf Pro here, and believe it or not, he put it inside a tent. And so this was mainly a tent as of, a year and a half ago. And so trust me, that robot was not meant to be in 120-degree weather. And so, but again, Scott and I kind of saw what we were about and felt like, hey man, you need to have a robot. And we became just great friends. And I love having the robot here. The robot's been such a vital part of what we do. But again, we're sitting inside a sim right here, inside a tent. And so, it just, again, get out of the box. What can we do? Let's try to figure it out and let's get it done.
And what do you think has been the biggest influence that you've had on Bryson?
That's a hard one. I think there's a number. I stutter because sometimes I'm trying to, there's so many different things. I think as somebody who's known him as long as I have and have spent up to 30 hours a week with him. I traveled full time with him, and so I've always felt like the most important thing is to try to be a good human being first and have good character, and so on. But I think the biggest thing that I've instilled in him is to try to make sure he owns what he does. And so when we went down the road of the golfing machine and saying, is there something different that you want to do? He kind of looked at it and go, well, I want to do this. Again, Bryson, you got to own it. And so one of the things that I think we've gone through in our journey is the fact that I might have the answer, but I need him to discover what the answer is. And I push that harder than anything. And he would look at me, he'll still tell you today, he'll blame me. He said, it's your fault the way I turned out in that area. Obviously, other parts, his parents, it's their fault. But again, there's so many times where he'll look at me and go, hey man, what do you think? And what do you want me to do? And I'll literally shake my head and say, nope. You got to figure it out. You got to dig it out of the dirt. And that's what he does. And so, and that's hard as a teacher, because as a teacher coach, sometimes, you want to give him the answer. And for some reason with us, it was never, probably from the time he was 18 on, it was much more about pushing him to discover what he wanted, discovering it, and then, okay, I own it. And I think that's what I instilled in him the most.
Great. Well, I mean, every time I see him talk, I think he comes across extremely well, and I believe he's good for the game. I think more people are talking about the game than before. They're talking about him, and they love what he's doing. He's exciting, and at the end of the day, if you're a top sportsman, you are an entertainer.
Oh, no doubt.
As well,
no doubt.
So I think,
and he's entertaining.
He's entertaining.
Always has been, and again. There is an element of him like he's a clown, and so and a lot of people would look at that as a derogatory term. But again, he, when he's cut loose here, and I mean, I always love when he comes back here. He loves being with the kids that are here. He's always entertaining, and he's always open, to talking to the kids and letting the kids talk to him. He almost becomes one of them, and so I think that's why a lot of kids love. Or support him out there, and I think that's a good quality to have, and I certainly enjoy that aspect of him when he wants to cut loose, and we've done a lot of crazy things obviously together on camera, and that are weird when he's done his weird finish and looks like he's going to hit me and doesn't, and all that kind of stuff. So again, I think he understands that value and of entertaining, but again, he's always trying to figure it out, and that's. I think that's what makes, the golf fan go, what has he figured out this week? And what has he figured out? Is there something maybe I can take from what he's doing? That kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of cool. He kind of shares it sometime in a weird way, a scientific quote way that kind of just flies over my head. He used to quote physics equations to me, and I don't know why he ever did that to me, because I couldn't understand one sentence of it, but
that's why.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah, anything to bring me down, that was it. So but that's what's him, and I think that's why the game loves that aspect of it. He has his haters, of course, but I think that's just part of the game today.
Well, it is unfortunately, and I get sometimes into some conversations with people on Twitter about it and Facebook and various things, because I can't understand why that would be the case, especially if you don't actually know somebody, you've never actually met somebody anyway. So no, I think it's great for the game. I think what you've mentored and developed is absolutely fantastic, and quite clearly it's come about as a consequence of your relationship with the parents and really understanding the kids. And have you got a couple of other Brysons in the pipeline?
I hope not. I think I have a bunch of girls right now, young girls that I'm working with that are amazing, amazingly talented, and so that's been really fun because it's different. I have a couple of kids that are developing quite nicely. One just qualified for the U.S. Junior, shot 66. So yeah, do they swing like Bryson? No. Do they act like Bryson? Everybody's an individual and different. And so, but it would be fun to have, one more. Again, it's such an anomaly. I don't think people understand what Bryson did. Just doesn't happen in golf. To win the NCAA, to win the USAM, to do what he did, low amateur as well at Augusta. I mean, he could have won Augusta. He just wasn't ready yet, for that environment. And so, but we prepared, and we prepared like no other, for that event. And so, I have a number of kids, young, 10, 11, 12 that are coming up, and it could be fun. I'm getting old though, so, I'm not sure how long I'm going to last in this whole thing, but I'm sure excited about working with them, that's for sure.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Really has. I've enjoyed the time here, and all of your team here are just so welcoming, and you can just tell the environment that you create here. As you talked earlier, it's a very relaxed environment.
You bet.
And I've seen lots of people come and go, and I think you were saying it's just monthly programs here for them. And
yeah, I've always believed that coaching was probably the best way of learning. And as far as for me, instead of the half hour or 45-minute lesson or an hour lesson, in and out. Again, very fortunate. My wife supported what I was trying to do with a coaching philosophy, and so it was much different. I knew it wasn't going to be something we were going to get rich on, that's for sure. In fact, in the day, I think I was $99, and you could be here for a month, and you could hit all the balls you wanted, and you could be here. I was here 5 days a week, 6 days a week sometimes, and I traveled to a lot of the junior tournaments as well. So pretty good deal at $99. And again, I didn't have all that I have now, but I certainly had video and some of the things that were in my mind that you had to have as a coach and as a teacher to help understand the golf swing. But I just believed in that coaching environment, and to try to understand because most of them were kids, the way the kids are. I knew who they were dating. I knew sometimes their home life. I knew, all the, what they were doing at school and so on. And I thought that was important for me to help develop their potential, because if I didn't know a lot of that information, I wouldn't know what was inhibiting them or what their personalities were like. And so all that helped me understand how they play. So again, it's not just about the golf swing, it's about how you play the game as well, and how you prepare for the game. And so all that is intertwined in who they are as individuals. And so that's what I've tried to create here, and very fortunate, great facility to be able to do that. And it's been a blast, doing it over the last 20 years.
Well, I wish you continued success.
You bet.
And obviously all your students as
You bet.
well. And
Thanks.
Look forward to getting back here and
Anytime.
welcoming you to Orlando.
Anytime. You're always welcome.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.